there, it's Jen from Fabulous Paper Emporium and welcome to my channel. Today is part 2 of this amazing album that we're making, a calendar album, and we're going to be using the A Year with My Gnomies designer paper from Photoplay. And I'm just giving you a sneak peek because if you stick with me, you'll find out exactly how to put this together. So we've got all of our decorative paper put in. We have our flip calendar, and of course, we have our Gnomies. So stick with me and I'll show you exactly how to make this. So here we are for part 2 of our calendar album using the A Year with My Gnomies. So I've already started putting in the calendar parts. Now, one thing you will notice is there really isn't anything that's visible. So I chose to continue going along in that vein, so there is no border around the outside. I also realized when I was into my cutting that you are going to only need one of these panels because the other one that would be under the calendar isn't going to be seen. So you can save on paper that way. I didn't for this January. So anyways, so this is what it will look like. I've got my January calendar on the front. I have a solid piece of cardstock that came with the solids that goes with this collection. This cute pattern that was one of the other patterns in the series. And then we have a little Gnomie here. We've got our solid, again our solid, and then we have one of the gnome pages. So I've already done a bit of a cutting tutorial when it came to maximizing the paper in this collection. Because ideally, I would love to be able to make another small project. And already with my little, the little bits that you end up trimming off, I've kept all those. So I will see what, to what extent I can actually extend the life of this paper pack. So I'm going to cut to my quick little tutorial on the paper cutting before we get too deep in. So I'm going to cut to that right now, and then I'll join you for the rest of the assembly. So I wanted to start off by saying, if you are using the A Year with My Gnomies, then I just wanted to go through the cutting process to maximize the cardstock, because I'm hopeful that I'll be able to, with some of the remnants, be able to create another project. May not be a big project, but I'm hoping that we are going to use every last stitch. So even these pieces that I've cut off, that wouldn't be normally useful for much else, I am keeping these because I just don't know yet. So as I might have been saying earlier, the sheet is laid out like this. This is where the calendar piece came from. So I would recommend that you cut, the first cut be across the sheet, leaving you with one piece like this, and then a second like this. So this is a 6x6 sheet. This is 12x6. Okay, you do have 2 other patterns on this side, but if you're cutting it the way I've created this album, then this is how you're going to want to cut it to maximize. So with this little piece that we have, I'm now going to use this pattern in the calendar flip. And in order to do so, I'm going to need to trim this down to 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. Okay, so now we have 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. Perfect. We set that aside. This piece is going to go in the base. So 6 inches is what we need. And I'm going to start off, because I want one kind of continuous piece. We're going to cut the first piece at 2 7/8, the second piece at 6, and then the last piece is also 2 7/8. So we have just a little tiny leftover. All right, so that is it for the solid, for the pattern. We are setting aside our beautiful tag and cut aparts page. And then I'm going to go to the solids. And for this one, I'm choosing this lovely turquoise color. It's not as prevalent in these, so you could always go for orange. But orange I had just done, so this is November. Orange I had just done for Halloween, and so I think I'm going to go with this for my November. And so I'm going to cut this across at 6 inches, like so. So this piece we get to store, so that is perfect. We have one piece at 2 7/8. Okay, so that's 2 7/8 by 6. We only need one piece. Now we're going to trim the rest at 5 3/4. So that's 5 3/4, and now we're going to cut our square at 5 3/4. So 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. And then our last piece is 2 3/4. So our last piece is 2 3/4 by 5 3/4. And that's all the pieces that you need for this project if you're using A Year with My Gnomies. Okay, and we're back. So hopefully the cutting tutorial makes sense. Of course, there is no pressure to do the same thing. Obviously, if you're not using the gnomes, A Year with My Gnomies, you're going to have to choose a different pattern paper to go with, and that is totally fine. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how I tried to maximize this particular collection. So I've got January done, and if I flip, I've got February done as well. So there's a magnet here, and that clicks there. I don't necessarily want to point out my flaws, but my gnome is covering my magnet because I forgot to put my magnet down. And by the time I realized it was already dry. I didn't want to obviously tear anything. So for the rest of my little album, I have an M where the magnet is going to go to remind me, and I have my magnets sitting on my table. Not that that always is a reminder. So anyway, so this is how we're going to go through and apply our what we've done. So the first thing, and I didn't do it for the rest of these. So the first thing, what I will do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to put in my solid and my decorative paper into all of my calendars. So here's the little packet I have. We've obviously got our little gnomes, right? So this is going to go into the very bottom after you flip open the gatefold. This is going to be the pattern that goes into my calendar. So this will be going right here. I've made sure to ink all my edges. It's going to go like that. So make sure that you have the patterns going the right way. And the solid is going to go at the top. And then I have one large gatefold and one smaller gatefold because, let me bring in my album. So the gatefold piece that goes here is going to be larger than the piece that goes over here, because this is just covering the back side of the calendar. So it's really not a gatefold piece, although I just made it sound like it was. So, so anyway, so those are the pieces that you need. So we are going to have some leftover pattern paper in the sense that you're going to have one whole sheet of all of these beautiful cut aparts. You're going to have half a sheet of the solid if you're choosing to use the solid that goes with the collection. If not, then there are solid paper that you can find either in your stash or your local craft store that will fit the bill when it comes to finding something that works within the collection. And then of course we have like a million stickers to use, which may be an exaggeration, but so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to first tackle all of my calendars. And the one thing that I did want to point out is I put a little bit of double-sided tape. I don't have the magnet down, but that is hopefully also going to be a bit of a reminder to, hey, put your magnet in. So hopefully I don't forget those. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to finish all of my calendar pieces. When I come back, I'll just run right through so you'll see the patterns that I used for each one. I'll be right back. Right, so all of my calendars are done. I've installed the 2 pages inside, the 2, one solid, one pattern paper. All that's done. I've also put this down as well because I'm not needing to worry about magnet installation or anything like that right when I was doing that. Now comes the time. Excuse me. Now comes the time where we're going to install our magnets and put on our calendar pieces and the rest of the pieces. So, given the fact that we've come this far, but there's still quite a bit to kind of go through, I think this is probably going to be there's probably going to be a part 3 so that we can do the covers. And I'm still contemplating on whether or not the front and back covers are going to have pockets at the bottom. Yes, so we'll see about that. Anyhow, for right now, we need to focus on getting our magnets in so that we can put down some cardstock and put the calendar pieces in. So let's take March. Okay, so the magnet's going to go on this side because you always want to have the calendar to flip outwards, and this way that'll give you it won't be in your way. If I had it flipping this way, it's going to impede, I don't know, it just, for me, it seems to make more sense to flip it outside. If you make a mistake and you go the other way, it's not a big deal. It's your album. You can do what you will. So I'm going to do my best to get that all squared away. And so there's a few things. Okay, magnet first, just so I don't forget. I'm going to put the pin in my glue for right now. I gotta say, I started using this last year sometime, and I make a lot of projects. So this is just a 4-ounce glue, barely art, and it really has lasted me quite a while because you don't need a ton. A little will do the trick more often than not. So anyhow, shameless plug there for... All right, so I've got 2 magnets here. My fingers are chock-a-block full of glue. So I apologize. I promise you it's not my skin. So I've got 2 magnets there. I'm going to grab my double-sided tape and just take a little bit off that. I am going to come in a little bit more than where I kind of have my magnet circle, but I'm not worried about it. I do them in pencil, but I also know that when I place this, I'm not going to see the mark, so it's good. It's good to go. And I'm going to peel this back. I'm going to put both of my magnets. So I've got both of my magnets here. They're stuck together. I'm going to leave them as a pair for right now. So I've got that down. I'm going to also want to, you see I've got my pair right there. So I'm going to want to give myself some idea as to where this flap ends. So I'm going to grab a pencil, and again, just kind of lightly going over the area, just so I know where I can apply my double-sided tape, because we are going to also install our calendar so that we can put down, like, get the magnets attached. Okay, so and I'm going to add, you know, I'm going to leave some space in between, but I'm going to add quite a bit of score tape. This calendar business, I don't want it going anywhere. I also want to give myself a little bit of space in between where I marked, because I obviously don't want to go too close to that and then have tape that is going to be sticky. I do find, however, that the score tape, if you happen to want to take it off some of your cardstock, it is pretty easy, and I don't usually get a lot of tearing. So you can often like coax it off the page. And if I could just grab a little bit of cardstock, I'll show you really quickly. Really quickly, just as a side. Okay, so let's say I put this down. Now, mind you, I don't know how well it works with the, if you have something, like if this was partially showing, you may have to score it maybe with your crafting blade really carefully. So if you just kind of peel it back, you may get a little bit of tearing, but if it's going to be covered anyways, just go really slowly, and voila. So I got it off with little bit of tearing. So it can be done. And like I said, if it's going to be covered, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Anyhow, back to this. No, I don't need any more. Okay, so I'm going to peel back my double-sided tape. There is no easier way. If you want to apply liquid glue on top of your double-sided tape, by all means, make sure your calendar is the right way. I'm going to bring this in and see about getting this in as best place as I can put it. So we did a good job. There's no sticky right there. We'll have our magnet on this side. I think I did a pretty good job of getting the double-sided tape. It's about, let me just measure. I think it's about an inch or so, maybe 3/4 of an inch. No, the center of this piece of tape is an inch from the edge, to give you an idea. And it's also an inch from the bottom of the gatefold thingy here, whatever we're calling that, the gatefold panel. Okay, so I have my two magnets here. I'm going to pull off my double-sided tape that's on this side. I'm going to take that piece, pull off the top magnet. Be careful, because these little magnets are strong. Now I'm putting something in between, because if I just leave them sandwiched and I push this together, you run the risk of tearing your tape off and your magnets will still be stuck together. So having something in between the magnets is pretty essential to getting them to pull apart rather easily. Whoops. So there we go. So, and it just barely caught. So I'm going to add, now that I know where the placement is, I'm going to grab my score tape. I'm going to, it's staying where it is. That wasn't actually what I wanted to grab. I want to grab the thicker score tape because I want to cover this completely with score tape so that magnet does not go anywhere. And I'm going to pull that off and do the same thing on the other side. Ugh. Okay. All right. This way I know my cardstock is going to adhere to it really nicely. Magnets, being that they have a very smooth texture, I feel like benefit from the double-sided tape. The adhesive from the double-sided tape, not the double-sided tape, the double-sided tape. So this panel is going to go right here. So I will grab my glue, which I'm sure very shortly I'm going to have to do a refill. I'm going to apply a little bit of glue around here as well, just to get in all those nooks and crannies. I'm going to place it, and because we have that glue, if I needed to make any adjustments, I probably would have a little bit of time. I press very carefully around the magnet to make sure that we have good contact between the cardstock and the surrounding paper, surrounding cardstock, our base. And that way I know it's not going to lift or anything. You also want to make sure when you're putting a magnet down that you're giving yourself enough space. If I didn't leave enough space between where the magnet is and the edge of this solid piece, then it would be very difficult without some assistance from the score tape. Then it's going to take a little bit to get that to stick down. So on this side we have our other piece, which is going to cover like so. And so for this one, I'm going to easily peel off my adhesive, of course. I have one of those pokey tools. It's over there. I'm too lazy to get it. And okay, I'm going to go do the same thing, go around that, and we're going to place that and press down. Oh boy, lots of glue in the end there. And we are done. So now we have that satisfying, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear it. Yeah, that satisfying click of the magnet. That's how you know the magnet's there. There we go. Anyhow, if you wanted to, if you were so inclined, you could always put a magnet underneath this decorative piece and put it underneath the solid at the top if you wanted another magnet there. But because the book really is being flipped kind of like this, I didn't feel like it was necessary. But if you are a big proponent of magnets and really love them, then you're more than welcome to add those in there. If you wanted to use, if magnets are a little bit, intimidating for you, then you can always use these little guys. These little guys are just your Velcro, and they're sticky. I have used them on a couple of my projects. They're very tacky, very sticky. So I've not had any issues with that. They do grab perfectly well. And depending on what kind you get, these ones are a little bit more visible because they're white. You can get clear. Nope. I thought I had some here. I thought I had some here that were clear, but I don't. Oh, no. So anyways, if you do want to use your something like a Velcro, you can absolutely do that too. Or you can use bookbinding tape. You can use seam binding tape. I'm okay. It's been a day. Anyhow, so I'm going to go ahead. So you're going to repeat that all the way down the line, just making sure that, like I said, I've got my M's marked on where I need to put my magnets. So for me, my February flips outwards, March flips outwards. I've got my cool little flip calendar that happens there and there. So this is basically what your the album is going to look like, obviously, that I showed you at the beginning of this tutorial. And so if you have any questions whatsoever, any feedback, please feel free to leave them at in the comments below. We will come back with part 3. And I will do my best to get that sooner rather than later, because I know like waiting a full week can be a bit daunting to get any more information back. But you see where we're going. Hopefully you stick with it. If you want to share your projects, I would love to see your projects. Head on over to our Facebook page. It's Fabulous Paper Emporium. And we'd love to see the projects that you're making, especially if you made them using one of our tutorials. That would be fantastic. So any questions, comments, I think I've already said that, feedback in the comments. If you're not already a subscriber, I would love to have you as part of the fabulous friends that the group of friends that we've collected along the way. That would be absolutely amazing. And yeah, so hopefully you have a fabulous rest of your day. And you stay safe and well. I'll see you next time. Bye.